The Lord be with you. This is a reading of the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus continued to teach the crowds in parables. He said, "The reign of God may be likened to a man who sowed good seed in his field. And while everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds through his wheat, and then made off. When the crop began to mature and yield grain, and the weeds made their appearance as well, the owner's slaves came to him and said, 'Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where are the weeds coming from?' He answered, 'I see an enemy's hand in this.' His slave said to him, 'Do you want us to go out and pull them up?' 'No,' he replied. 'Pull up the weeds, and you might take the wheat along with them. Let them grow together until harvest. And then at harvest I will order the harvesters, first to collect the weeds, and then to bundle them up to burn, and gather the wheat into my barn.'" Jesus proposed still another parable. "The reign of God is like a mustard seed, which someone took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest seed of all. Yet when full grown, it is the largest of plants. It becomes so big a shrub that the birds of the sky come and build their nests in its branches." Jesus offered them still another image. "The reign of God is like yeast, which a woman took and kneaded into 3 measures of flour. Eventually, the whole mass of dough began to rise." All these lessons Jesus taught the crowds in the form of parables. He spoke to them in parables only, to fulfill what was said to the prophet, "I will open my mouth in parables. I will announce what has been laid hidden since the creation of the world." And then, dismissing the crowd, Jesus went home. His disciples came to him with the request, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds." And his answer was this: "The farmer sowing the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed, the citizens of the kingdom. The weeds, followers of the evil one. The enemy who sowed them, the devil. The harvest, the end of the world. The harvesters, the angels. Just as weeds are collected and burned, so it will be at the end of the world. The Son of Man will dispatch his angels to collect from his kingdom all who draw others to apostasy and all evildoers. The angels will hurl them into the fiery furnace, where they will wail and grind their teeth. And then the saints will shine like the sun in their Father's kingdom. Let everyone heed what they hear." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
We have room up front. It is a Catholic church, you know. I bark, but I don't bite. Although, after last Sunday's, or actually Saturday's Mass, I was told that that was the worst sermon I've preached in 5 years. You did? And it was. And everybody agrees with you. So, overachiever that I am, you will now get 3 sermons. And they won't be the worst, or anywhere near it. I would like to take literally each one of the scriptures, the first two together, though, from Wisdoms and the Psalms, because sometimes we Christians, and certainly we Catholics who don't read enough of the Bible to begin with, particularly the Old Testament, that we think that the Old Testament has a different kind of God than the New Testament has. That Jesus is bringing a loving God, and the Old Testament brought a God who, was full of wrath. And at times. But in the book of Wisdom, particularly this passage in chapter 12, and particularly in this psalm, we get this picture of a very, very loving and forgiving God, and a God who is at the same time all-powerful and all-merciful. Which, when we think about power in this world, and we think about mercy in this world, on a human level, usually all-powerful and all-merciful do not go together. Okay? Which is a fatal flaw in the human nature and the human soul, that power can be so abused. And as we go to the nightly news or the morning paper, we just get that reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. So, but the image of God that is given is a whole different image of that. Where the Old Testament tends to be more narrow, if you will, as I'm looking down the center aisle, is that was the God for the Hebrew people. That was the God for the chosen people. That was the God for the people who had made the covenant and who had kept the covenant, that theirs was the mercy and forgiveness. Okay? That wasn't necessarily true for anybody else. So there was a bit of a narrowness in that image, but the image was there. The image of an all-powerful and an all-merciful God was there already, centuries before Jesus came. The second reading that we read is something very specific to Paul's notion of the greatest blessings about being Christian, the greatest blessings about having that relationship as a disciple of Christ, as a brother or sister of the Lord, as a member of the same body. And one of the greatest blessings is that one is given the gift of the Holy Spirit, and this Spirit, this gift of the Holy Spirit becomes most valued and valuable when we need it the most, when we are at our very weakest. That's when the Spirit takes over for us, literally interceding for us as God wills. When we are so weakened, we cannot even pray. When we are so weakened, we cannot even pray. The Spirit prays for us in ways that are beyond our comprehension, in ways that we most need to be prayed for. Okay. And I find that very important, not only for myself, because in meditating on this, I can't meditate on this passage without remembering back the times that I was so weak I couldn't pray, and how the Lord got me through those times, and the times when I'm with people when tragedy comes right to their door, is to remember that the Spirit is interceding for them, and it's not just the loved ones, or it's not just the pastor, or not just the congregation. It is God and the Holy Spirit is interceding for them. So that's a very important revelation. But again, Paul saw that as only for those who have this relationship with Jesus. Paul saw that's what it meant to really be a Christian, that you would have this special resource, and only in that kind of relationship. Now the gospel, and this is a very important distinction to make about the teaching of Jesus, as distinct maybe from the teaching of the other New Testament writings in the epistles. Okay, is that Jesus taught about the reign of God, Okay? And that this, and he always taught about it in parables, because parables are essentially metaphors, and metaphors are used in the Bible, both Old and New Testament, essentially to try to give a visual of how the divine and the human, the spiritual and the physical intersect. Okay? How does God connect with us, and what change does that make in us and make in our world? Okay? And so in these parables, Jesus was describing that. And I want to focus mainly on that parable of the weeds, the ones that the disciples asked about. They said, could you explain that to us? They didn't ask an explanation for the others, but they had an explanation of that. And indeed, it probably was very good that they did. Okay? And if you remember that, okay, the explanation was, okay, who's the farmer? The Son of Man. Jesus is the farmer. Okay? What's the field? The whole world. That's the biggest revelation of this parable, is that the field is the world. Messianic expectations at the time of Jesus is the Messiah is for the chosen people. The Messiah is not for the world. The Messiah is not to save the world. The Messiah is to save the chosen people. The biggest revelation Jesus brought is that the Messiah is to save the world. Okay, the biggest revelation, you know the John 3:16 revelation? You can recite it by heart. Some of us can. God so loved the world that God sent the only begotten Son, not to condemn the world, but to save the world. The world. And that's the essential, fundamental, bedrock message of Jesus, of why he came and what he's doing ever since he came. Okay? What he's doing when he was here with us on earth, what he was doing on the cross, what he was doing in the tomb, what he was doing in the resurrection, what he was doing in the ascension, what he's been doing ever since, and what he will do until the end of time, until the final harvest. And there will be a final harvest. Okay? What does it look like in the meantime? Well, it looks like in every field of our life, in every one of our lives, in every one of our families, in every one of our communities, in every one of our churches, what do we have? We have wheat and we have weeds. Okay? And you have to learn how to live with the weeds. They're not going to be gone. They're not going to be removed. Okay? That's the moral. That's one of the morals in the story, is that we have to learn to live with the weeds in our own backyard. Okay? In our own family, in our own church, throughout our lives. We've been living with him since we've been born, and we will be living with him when we die. Okay? And they're going to be around until the end of the world. There will not be a time in human history that'll be weed-free. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Jesus always tells us the truth in love, and this is a very important truth to hear from him in love. That we need to learn this, and we need to learn how to deal with it. Okay? And that we really are given the grace to deal with it. We can learn how to live with the weeds and not become the weeds and be fruitful. We may not be as fruitful, if I just get rid of these weeds, I could be more fruitful. I could be more, I could be a better servant of God. I could be a better husband, a better father, a better wife, a better mother, a better son, a better daughter. Whatever we can say, we'd be better if this was only God. Well, you may think that. But God thinks otherwise. And you may not know why. You may go through your whole life and not know why. Why was that weed in my garden? And why could I never get rid of it? And not ever know why. But somehow, some way, that gets incorporated into the reign of God over the world and over the whole lifetime of the world and into all eternity. The two biggest revelations of the parable of the weeds is that the field is the entire world, and that after the harvest there is eternity. That there is a reign of God that is weed-free. There is. It's just going to be then and not now. You know, after being told that last Sunday's sermon was the worst, and I thought, okay, Bob, you got to try to make it your very best sermon this week. Okay, by the way, this isn't. I know that. You know that. This isn't the best sermon. It's literally 3. Okay, and it's for me personally. It's always trying to remember that the reign of God is much bigger than my little world. Okay, my part in the reign of God is only a very small part. And that my images of God, my images of Jesus and his work and his mission, my images of the Holy Spirit and the indwelling of that Spirit, not only into my soul, but into everyone's soul. I believe that God is not restricting God's self just to those who are already believers in this religion or this religion. Pope Francis puts it much better than I do. He said, I don't believe in a Catholic God. I believe in God. Same God. Same God for the entire reign of God, for the entire world. That's the God we believe in. That's the God that we serve. That's the God we want for everybody.